Well, hello. Welcome to day one of Mastering Your Metabolism. We had a technical difficulty and the original presentation, the original Zoom call did not record. So if this looks a little bit different to you, that's because it is. So I'm going to do this again just for the recording and send it out to you so that you have that recording to refer back to. So let me jump on here and share my screen with you and pull this up and we will get started. And then we will start the slideshow. There we go. Okay, so this is the overview of where we're going this week. Today we're talking about nutrition and it's going to be a lot of fun. You're welcome to ask questions in the comments. I have our wonderful health coach, Lori Sotro. This is a reminder for the days to come. We'll be there to monitor the chat and help regulate questions and field questions and answers, and also collect some wonderful, like most frequently asked questions, and we'll hold those in reserve and answer them on Friday. So you can see today we're talking all about nutrition. Tomorrow is common barriers and stumbling blocks that we face when trying to master our metabolism. Day 3, stress, sleep, social support, the 3 S's of metabolism. Day 4 is probably my favorite. We're going to jump into exercise, talk about the importance of motion in your life. And then day 5 would be helpful hacks that you can implement on a daily basis. And then those frequently asked questions. So as you look at this, you'll probably note that we're probably not going to master your metabolism in these 5 days. This isn't a get fit quick fix. This is setting the foundation to build a sustainable lifestyle for longevity and long-term health. So we're going to introduce the principles needed to really master your metabolism through the lens of functional medicine. And that's what we use at Resolve Medical to really dive deep and see if we can address those underlying issues that are preventing you from feeling your best, from optimizing that metabolism. So it's a journey. We're all in a different place. You might come out at the end of this with one take-home point, and that's it. And that's great. The challenge still exists. At the end of today and at the end of every day, we will have challenges in place for you to implement. You might implement one, you might implement them all. You might be like, I am ready to overhaul everything in my whole life. And we have options for you to do that too. And we're here to support you to do that. So with that in mind, let's get started. So today, when we look at nutrition, I want you to think about nutrition like we always do, typically from a calorie standpoint. Especially when we talk about weight loss, we think about calories in versus calories out. If I can balance that equation and make it negative, I'm going to lose weight. Unfortunately, it's not always that simple. And the analogy I want to use here with this picture is think about lifting weights. We could have a loaded barbell and maybe it has 100 pounds on it. And you have a 20-year-old athlete come over and he can probably lift that barbell with the greatest of ease. That amount of weight is no big deal. Then maybe you have somebody in their 90s come over and try to lift that same bar, same calories, if you will, and they're not going to be able to. It's going to be a whole lot harder. And the same implies for our bodies. There's so many things that go on behind the scenes to how our body uses calories. And if we think about calories and what they really are, it's a measurement of energy. It came from a lab. Calories is the energy required to elevate and raise 1 gram of water 1 degree Celsius. That's what a calorie means. So when we look at energy, because that's what we're measuring in the body, we have to look at let me tell you about this before we jump into the body. So the reason that we look at this weightlifting idea is that this balance ratio of calories in versus calories out, this isn't something that is generally accepted anymore. Like you can see from these studies that are pretty recent, like, hey, maybe this concept of counting calories and just balancing this equation isn't enough anymore. It's not enough to really figure out how to combat the obesity epidemic, how to increase metabolism for people, make sure that the body can burn energy in a more effective way. So it's not just me, it's really a research-based thing. And so when we look at energy in the body, we're really diving into the mitochondria, where we have to look at the cellular health. And maybe not this fluorescent picture, but this probably sparks some memories of high school biology for you. I know it does for me. I can still remember my high school biology teacher standing in front of the class and asking us, what is this? And, this is the mitochondria. And then he says, and the mitochondria is what? And everybody repeats, the powerhouse of the cell. This is where your body creates ATP, which is the body's exchange, the energy exchange. It's the currency of the body to keep things moving. So if the mitochondria isn't working, if we have inflammation or a decreased ATP production, we're not going to be able to burn calories or produce calories in the same way that we should be able to. That will affect that equation. So inflammation can affect the equation, insulin resistance, hormone production and regulation, gut health, all of these things that play a role in how our body can operate. So in another analogy that I really like, think about a fireplace. If we think about wood as calories, how fast would it take a fireplace to burn through a piece of wood? If I asked you that question, you'd probably say, oh, there's so many things that it depends on. How hot is the fire? How big is the fire? How many coals are at the bottom? How much ventilation are we getting through that fireplace? And how big is the log that we're trying to burn? So all of those same questions apply to the body, but when we're talking about calories and energy. And the way that I see it, there's really two major questions that come out of this when we're trying to master our metabolism. One is, how do we fuel this fire properly? How do we feed our bodies? How do we give it what it needs to produce the energy? And then two, what can we do to stoke the fire? What can we do to increase that fire size? Or how do we raise our basal metabolic rate? How do we raise our body's ability to burn calories, improve the mitochondrial health, and all of that stuff that goes on in the back of making that equation make sense, or not make sense, I should say. So today, if we scroll back up here real quick, today you can see that we're focusing on nutrition. Today we're answering that first question. How do we fuel the fire? And from here on out, then we're from days 2 through 5, we're going to talk about how do we stoke that fire? How do we increase that fire size, increase our body's ability to use and burn calories? So anytime that we think about nutrition, there are a lot of choices out there that we need to make. And you can get completely lost in the research. You can find research to support just about all of these, which probably means that there's some good in just about all. I probably wouldn't give the standard American diet, that first one on the list, any benefit. You can see that we call that the SAD diet. It's just not full of a lot of nutrients, not nutrient dense, not super beneficial to the body, with a lot of processed foods, a lot of packaged foods that contain a lot of toxins to the body and things like that. So the question becomes is, what information can we glean from these nutritional choices that are those little truths that we can pull out that apply to our life in general and will make us healthier? So that's what we try to do. We try to make it simple for you. And we're going to dive into some of those points that all of these have in common. But one thing that I do want to touch on primarily is protein. And the reason for talking about protein is specifically because when we talk about mastering metabolism, one of the big questions that raises and comes up is, how do I lose weight? How can I optimize my calories? How can I burn calories, raise my basal metabolic rate? And protein is a really important component in that. So, and the reason being is because when we eat protein with every meal, we're going to regulate our blood sugar more effectively. We're going to increase the satiety, so we're not as hungry as often. And one of the reasons behind this is one hypothesis behind this comes from Dr. Ted Naiman, and he's called the Diet Doctor. And you'll see that he has this protein leverage hypothesis. A lot of cool information out there from him. And he leads a weight loss clinic up in Seattle. And it's no surprise that a lot of these weight loss clinics focus on a low carb diet, high protein diet, because protein is so important. And the protein leverage hypothesis means your body prioritizes protein more than any other part in your diet. So what that means is your body's going to want you to keep eating until it gets the optimal amount of protein. And what it's really looking at doing is balancing this nitrogen levels in the body, and it's called your nitrogen balance. If our nitrogen levels are net zero, that means we're taking in enough nitrogen to build protein, to break down protein and rebuild protein. So we're using what we're taking in. In the nitrogen positive, we're getting more nitrogen, usually from protein, than we're actually using. That's when we can build muscle. That's in an anabolic state. When we're in a nitrogen negative state, we're not consuming enough protein, and we're in a catabolic state when we're going to burn and break down that protein or those muscles. So how much protein do we need? You can look at the recommended daily allowances. You'll see it's around 0.37 is that smallest amount that we would need per pound. So 0.37 grams per pound per day. Typically, what I see is it's good that's like the bare minimum. That's going to keep us, if we have a sedentary lifestyle, at that net neutral nitrogen balance. But when we're talking about weight loss and we're talking about optimizing our nutrition, we're looking to increase that BMR. We want to increase our muscle mass. So we're going to need more protein. And ideally, for most people, that's going to be from somewhere between 0.6 to 0.8 grams per pound per day. And I put in or more in here because sometimes if we're really looking to lose weight, we can really up that protein. Or if we're really trying to build more muscle. 0.5 seems to be a pretty reasonable way to hit that net neutral level if we're not living like a sedentary lifestyle. So one of the other reasons that and you can see the bullet point here of eating protein first is just like our body prioritizes protein. If we eat protein first, we're going to hit that satiety faster. And that protein leverage hypothesis kicks in where your body's like, hey, I'm getting the protein I need. It's time to kick off that hunger cue, turn off those hormones that regulate hunger. We're going to increase satiety, and we're going to eat less. We'll talk about some other things that we can do to trigger those same kind of things on Friday as well. But typically that's what we're looking for protein. And you can do it. It's really hard to hit that type of protein without animal sources in the diet, which is why at the bottom here, we got to make the protein clean. We want it to be a sustainable source. We want it to be organic. We want it to be grass-fed, so that the protein that we're eating is not bringing in other toxins that can deter and can derail our effects and our ability to increase that basal metabolic rate and master our metabolism. So just as a quick question, I want you to think about, yesterday, what were my sources of protein? Usually it's going to be from meat. You can get some from dairy. You can get some from eggs. Cheese has protein. You can also get some from beans and lentils, legumes, some of these other plant-based sources of protein, quinoa. So just think about, what were, even over the last week, or maybe even in your diet in general, what are your biggest sources of protein? So think about that. Then we're going to dive in to the other pieces and components that are really important to maintaining a proper nutrient-dense diet. And we call these the 5 F's. The first one is phytonutrients. So yeah, I know it's not exactly an F, but this is a really important one. The phytonutrients is the color spectrum. The more color that you have in the diet, the better. So we want you to eat the rainbow. You should have lots of reds and yellows and oranges and purples and greens in the diet. All of these things are bright and vibrant for a reason in nature, because nature wants you to eat them. They encourage you to eat them. So they fill them with anti-inflammatory benefits, neuroprotective benefits, antioxidant benefits, anti-aging benefits. So the more rainbow colors we can get in the diet, the better. Fiber, that's the powerhouse food. That's what's going to help fuel your gut, help balance the mitochondrial health, and really help support that symbiotic relationship that we have with all of that gut bacteria that help us synthesize protein and synthesize hormones, and help us create neurotransmitters and help decrease our inflammation and help us with absorption and digestion and all of those things. In the American diet, we get about 9 grams of fiber per day, anywhere between like 9 to 15 is the average. We want to be up in the 30 to 35 grams of fiber per day. So this is something that a gastroenterologist by the name of Dr. Bolsewicz really hits home, because he sees it in a lot of his patients that this can reverse a lot of disease. So in his book called Fiber Fueled, which is a great book, and I recommend checking it out, he gives us the goal of trying to hit 30 different plant foods per week. So that can be fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and grains. And we want to make that diverse to give our gut microbiome the best chance to diversify and to feed it in the proper way. So I want you to ask yourself, how many different plant-based foods did I have in my diet this last week? If you can't remember, that's okay. Start to keep track at night. The golden rule with every meal should be, how can I diversify the number of plant foods in this meal? If there's one more that you can add, maybe you can add seeds, maybe you can add nuts, maybe you can add a piece of fruit, maybe you can add beans, maybe you can add rice. Whatever it is, if we can make that the golden rule of how do I increase my plants, we're going to increase the fiber in the diet. Fats, brain food. Your brain will thank you for having healthy fats in the diet. Avocado oil, avocados, olive oil, coconut oil, nuts, seeds. These are all of the brain, nerve, heart health foods. This is going to help with cellular health and structure. This helps us absorb all of those fat nutrients and those fat soluble vitamins. Fats are very beneficial for the brain. And then we have flavor. This is the spice of life, meaning that these are the spices and that make food taste good. So these are all of our herbs and our spices like cilantro and parsley and salt and pepper and ginger and turmeric. This is what makes food have flavor. They also have such wonderful anti-inflammatory benefits, detox benefits. They help support insulin, or like decrease insulin resistance, so increase insulin sensitivity. It's just such a good idea to have a myriad of spices in your diet. So ask yourself, what are the main spices that I eat or I use in my cooking, or even that I eat when I go out? Do I diversify those? One thing that we've tried to do in our family, and we've done a lot better in the past, is have a culture night where we will research the culture of a different country. We'll look at their foods and their games and things that my kids would be involved in. And then we dedicate one day to that country. And we have a meal from that country. It's a great way to bring in different flavors and different spices into your normal diet. And we found a lot of great foods that we really enjoy, and we try to implement them from then on out, at least occasionally, to bring that spice and the variety of spices into our diet. And the last one is fasting. This one is so good for the body to help it recover and rest. And really, when we look at fasting, we're looking at the benefits of detox, of gut health, of rest and recovery, really. And Dr. Jason Fung is a leading figure in fasting and has a wonderful book that we can talk about. But really, he describes it as when we're eating every single day, it's like going to the fridge for food. It's really easy. We know that there's food in there. And even if we reduce our calories and there's less food in the fridge, our body is still used to going to the fridge for fuel. So all of a sudden, if there's less food, your body says, uh-oh, there's less food in here. Something must be going on. We're living in a land of scarcity. I need to decrease that basal metabolic rate because this food isn't going to be there forever. But if we fast and we take the fridge out of the equation, we're forcing the body to look into the deep freeze. It takes more effort. It has to go into the basement. It has to open up that deep freeze. It has to de-thaw the food. But it knows that it has plenty of food down there. It's like, all right, I can do this. This is what we're doing now. It doesn't decrease the basal metabolic rate as it does as like a calorie deficit diet can. So we get to maintain our basal metabolic rate. We get to recover and rest. It's really healthy for the gut microbiome. And really what we look at this is two different things. One would be timing, meal timing. It turns out that the gut microbiome has a circadian rhythm that's just as important as your normal circadian rhythm. And they overlap. Just imagine if you were in a deep sleep at like 3 a.m. and somebody came and woke you up and they were like, hey, time to get to work. That's what would happen with your gut microbiome if you're eating at odd hours where it's not used to breaking down food and helping absorb nutrients and things like that. All of a sudden, it has to go from a deep sleep to work. So by following a meal time that's consistent, does wonders for your gut. Now, when we look at some of the research that supports brain health, meal timing from Dr. Dale Bredesen, who is one of the leading figures on reversing cognitive decline and combating Alzheimer's disease, he recommends what's called a 12-3 keto flex diet, meaning that every single day we're going to fast for at least 12 hours. That includes your sleep. And we're going to stop eating for at least 3 hours before bed. By doing that, we're helping increase that rest and recovery in the gut. We're helping giving that repair time, anti-inflammation time. And we're really starting to look into that second phase of why fasting is so important, which is cellular autophagy. And what that means is self-cleaning. So what I want you to imagine is that you just have such a busy week that you just do not have time to look to your house and clean. You don't have time for dishes or laundry or, picking up clutter and all of the things. By the end of the week, it's a whole lot harder to function. The dishes are piled in the sink. You're trying to meander through the clutter of the house. You're trying to find clothes that fit and match in the very back of the closet. And eventually you just have to take time to turn around and just clean your house. That's the same with time restricted eating or with intermittent fasting is what we colloquially will call it, but like that 12-3 type scenario where we're giving your body time to turn around and start cleaning. Now, a lot of times we have to do more of a spring clean where we're going to just get deep, and more prolonged fasting can help with that too and really increase that level of cellular autophagy to decrease insulin resistance, to help repair, to help regeneration, to help longevity and cellular aging. It's pretty awesome research, and it's really neat to see. And one of the things that I would recommend looking at, if you're interested in looking at more in depth of what fasting has to offer, is this book by Dr. Jason Fung, The Complete Guide to Fasting. There's so many great benefits in this book, and it walks you through step by step on what fasting can do for you from different metabolic standpoints, and whatever your questions are, this book probably has the answers and can go anywhere from 24 to 48 to 72 hours to even longer fast and more prolonged fasting. It's doable, and this book will show you how. So that's a great benefit and a great resource to look at for fasting. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. I still want to respect your time. We've covered a lot. So let's wrap this up and talk about how do we implement this into our life. This is where the challenge comes into play. What I would want you to do is just pick a principle that we've talked about and incorporate it into your daily life. Maybe that looks at, man, I am maxed out. I do not have time to change my diet or think about other things right now. There's just not enough time. Maybe all you can do is implement time restricted feeding where you're saying, okay, you know what? I could be consistent with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that's what I'm going to do. Or maybe you're like, well, my schedule isn't even that set. So maybe I can just do more of an intermittent fast so that I can, maybe I have to skip breakfast and I'll start eating at lunch and then I'll have dinner, or I'll eat breakfast and lunch and skip dinner. Maybe you can follow a more prolonged fast every occasion, or like more sparingly, so that you'll do a 24-hour fast once a month, or a 48 or a 72-hour fast. Maybe you just start by looking up Dr. Fung's book. That could be a great thing. Or maybe you're like, you know what? I'm going to just keep a running tally of how many plant foods I eat per week, and I'm going to see if I can hit 30. Maybe you start by looking up Dr. Bolshewick's book, Fiber Fueled, and see what he has to say there. Or you could even just schedule a culture night and go for that. Incorporate a new cooking spice into your routine. There's so many different levels of ways that you can start to incorporate this into your life to start to master your metabolism. What we want you to remember is that this is a journey again, and we're all at a different spot. So even if it's just barely starting out and you want to just do one thing, awesome. And we applaud you and we want to support you in that. And maybe you're somebody that says, you know what, I want to make a difference. I want to make my metabolism change so that I can just feel better and get the health that I want. We can do that too. We can dive into metabolism in such an aggressive way and really support you in a step-by-step process every single day for 6 months. In fact, we have a cohort starting this April that you get to work with our amazing health coach, Lori, and be in a support group of people, like-minded people that want to change their metabolism as well, where we can just drip feed you that information and the resources that you need to make those changes. So at the end of 6 months, you can turn around and say, wow, I had no idea, but I made such a huge difference in my health. And I understand this in so many different ways. That 6-month program covers all of the things that we're going to talk about over the next 5 days in so much more detail, plus so much more. And if you're interested in that, we definitely offer a discount because you're here with me today and this week, and that you're interested in mastering your metabolism. And you can reach out via email. Just respond to that same email that sent you the link. We can also talk if you'd like to work more one-on-one with us at Resolve Medical. We can definitely do that as well. And we can schedule a discovery call where we can just talk about a little bit about what's going on in your life and see if we would be a good fit for what you need and what we offer. And those are free. We just want to make sure that we can support you in any way we can. So I know we covered a lot today, and we really focused on fueling that fire and how do we feed it. This is just the beginning. We have so much more information that we're going to cover in the next coming days. I'm excited for you to continue to join me. If there are other people that you think that could benefit from this, don't hesitate to share with them, have them join. It's probably not too late. We can put them on the email list or share this information with them. And like I said, if you have questions, reach back out on the chat with Lori or send them to me via email. We'll send out a forum questionnaire follow-up email that you can respond to as well, so that come Friday, we can answer some of those more frequently asked questions. Thanks for sticking with me. I think we've hit that 30-minute mark, so I'll respect your time, and we will see you tomorrow.